Imagine this. You're chilling in your castle, gnawing on a massive turkey leg, when suddenly, your cousin from across the border knocks on your door and says, "Hey bro, that chair you're sitting on? Yeah, it's actually mine. So either get out so I can sit down, or we're going to punch each other until one of us dies." And boom, just like that, we have a massive brawl that lasted for 116 years. Yes, you heard that right. They call it the 100 Years' War. But in reality, these guys slapped each other for so long that the people who started it were dead for 8 generations, and their great-great-great-grandchildren were still chasing each other across fields with swords. This wasn't a war for high ideals. It was a mega-drama family feud where the border between the King of England and the King of France was thinner than your ex's patience. On one side, we have English kings who loved claiming stuff that wasn't theirs. On the other, French kings who loved to talk trash but kept getting bodied. The scene back then was basically soldiers busy shanking each other in the mud, while the big bosses stood on hills trash-talking about who was the real lobby leader of Western Europe. A bunch of fancy knights in shiny armor, riding horses, only to get wasted by peasants with longbows. An era where slaughter was a hobby and keeping a promise was as rare as a free-to-play skin. Welcome to Trashy History. Today we're exposing the 100 Years' War, where the kings' egos were bigger than their actual kingdoms. It all started with a guy named Edward III, a total Gen Z royal from England, who was living his best life, until he looked at the map and thought, France looks delicious. At this time in France, the Capet dynasty hit a game-over glitch. No male heirs left. Edward jumped up like, "Yo, my mom is a French princess, which means I'm half French. That throne is mine, period." But the uncles in France were like, "LMAO, sit down, kid. Our server rules say no crowns for girls' kids. Go back to your misty island and play with your toys." They elected a guy named Philip VI instead, starting a new server called the House of Valois. Edward was salty, but he tried to be a good boy, until Philip started playing dirty by seizing Guyenne, England's money farm for wine. On top of that, Philip started buffing the Scottish to poke Edward in the back. That's when Edward went, "Oh, you want to play on hard mode? Bet. Let me show you who the real hacker is." Edward officially declared Philip a fake and crowned himself king of both England and France. Imagine a distant cousin from a foggy island standing outside your house with a megaphone screaming, "This is my house, you're just a squatter." All of Europe was like, "Yikes, this kid is tilted. He's about to get griefed." The lobby was set. France with massive numbers, shiny pay-to-win armor, and England with a bunch of hobo-looking archers who had legendary aimbot skills. So Edward III started his ranked climb by landing in France like a mob of football hooligans. While the French were stuck in the old meta, knights must ride horses and charge like gods, the English used a broken mechanic, the longbow. Imagine French knights trying to look cool in the mud, while English peasants spammed arrows from a mile away like a Gatling gun. At the Battle of Crécy, the French were like, "Charge, boys! We outnumber them 3-1. What could go wrong?" But before they could even touch an Englishman, boom! Thousands of arrows rained down, piercing armor, piercing horses, turning the Gucci knights into human pincushions. This is when Edward buffed his son, the Black Prince, a teen who wore black armor to look edgy and had insane carry skills. The Black Prince wiped the map wherever he went, peaking at the Battle of Poitiers, where he didn't just win, he literally captured the French king, Jean II, and took him back to London as a hostage. England was like, "Let's go! Total outplay!" They set a ransom so high that all of France would have had to sell their kidneys to pay it. Edward sat on his throne, feet up, drinking French wine, thinking, "GGEZ, I've beaten the game." The English didn't even bother capturing cities. They just did chevauchés, basically running around, burning stuff, and ruining the economy until the French citizens cried, "Admin, ban this guy!" England was the hacker with wall hacks. France was the bot walking into a trap. It looked like France was about to be renamed South England. But life is never that simple, and the server admin decided to drop a massive patch called the Black Death. In the middle of the fight, boom, half the population on both sides logged out permanently due to the plague. The English were on a winning streak, but had to stop because, well, everyone was dead. When the game resumed, France luckily looted a tactical genius named Charles V. This guy wasn't a muscle-bound warrior, he was a strategy god. Charles realized, wait, we lose every head-on fight because of those bows. Why don't we just hide? France switched to a camping strategy, harassing the English until they were tilted. But then, England got a new tryhard named Henry V. At the Battle of Agincourt, Henry and his starving, sick army bodied the French elite again, just by waiting for it to rain and letting the French get stuck in the mud. Henry was so confident he forced the French king to disinherit his own son and make Henry the heir. England was like, checkmate. France is officially ours. But just as France was about to be deleted, a literal cheat code appeared, Joan of Arc. Imagine a 17-year-old farm girl who's never held a sword telling the French prince, "God told me to slap the English and make you king." Everyone was like, "Kid, go back to your sheep, you're delusional." But no, Joan grabbed a flag, charged in, and buffed the French morale from bronze to challenger rank.
Hacker!
The English saw a girl in
hacking.
white armor chasing them and panicked. Witch! She's using hacks! Joan turned the tide at Orleans. Even though she was later caught and roasted, literally, on a stake by the English, the French fire was lit. England started catching L's. Their territories dropped one by one, their generals died, and they ran out of VIP money. England went from eating the world to crying in a corner as France took their map back. In the end, England learned that talking trash too early gets you slapped. After a century of burning money, soldiers, and their youth on French soil, all they had left was one tiny port called Calais and a mountain of debt. Game over. In 1453, as the English packed their bags and ran back to their island, they realized they weren't fake French anymore. They were officially English. The guys who just got kicked out of the mainland server. The result? France went from a bunch of bickering nobles to a unified powerhouse. They built a standing army, got cannons, the new meta to counter bows, and became the big boss of Europe. England? As soon as they got home, instead of sleeping, they started a new drama called the War of the Roses to see who got the big chair. I guess some people just love to grief. The moral of the story? 1. Don't claim someone's house just because your mom used to live there. 2. Don't underestimate farm girls. They might have an admin on their side. And finally, if you're gonna fight for 100 years, make sure you have enough top-up money, or you'll just log out in shame. Thanks for watching the first episode of Medieval Ego Trips. If you enjoyed this, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next history roast. Peace out, and try not to let anyone claim your house today. GGWP.